This is Joe Peters from MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the Herd Network at Singo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Singo TV apps on the respective App Store and iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading the app, make sure that you rate it and leave a comment. The app is free. Singo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Stick, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs since 2016. We are up for a treat. I know that every week I have a guest, I tell you this, but Angie is one of the most kind, loving,
Mm.
wonderful people that I know. I have the honor to meet her in 2018, I think, Angie.
Yeah.
And I completely fall in love with her because she is the proof of what resilience and powerful female powerful and goddess energy is when what she's been going through in her life, and she's here with us because she is taking that to the next level, and she, like me, decide why wait too long and then fix the issues with the adults like I did with the health. Why I wait until fixing the issues of health and relationship with food with adults? Let's gonna work with kids and pregnant moms. And Angie did the
Mhm.
same. She was like, why we wait until we are adults to figure out some of that trauma and things that happen? And she's dedicating the last several years of her life into creating a beautiful series of books to help children to become resilient. And that's what we're going to talk now. We're going to talk about her wisdom and her experience into how you can help as a mom to be to your child to grow in an environment where they can learn to be resilient or they can learn how to handle all the things that are happening here. Angie, thank you so much for coming.
Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much for being
you.
here. Why you don't tell our audience a little bit about your story and your why and how you start Bella
Mm.
Santonini?
Okay, so my why is because I made choices in my life that ended up causing me pain. I was born in a family that my father was a severe alcoholic. I would call him a raging alcoholic. And um, he caused his wife and children much pain with his behavior, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain. And I have since, even though I repressed a lot of my youth, I now know that there was abuse of every kind. And one of the things I walked away from the whole event is that I wasn't worthy, that rage and anger is such a bad thing. It's dangerous and bad, and so no one should feel anger, and um, that men couldn't be trusted and they weren't safe. So, as a teenager, I made choices and ended up marrying in I think I was 20. I married a man who was emotionally injured from his childhood. And his way of dealing with life was through rage and anger. And so, his emotional triggers, his go to emotion would be anger. So I judged his anger, which made him more angry. And so it was this toxic cycle of emotional abuse. There were times when I think the worst time he screamed at me for 8 hours because he didn't think that I was supportive of him because I had asked him to calm down. So it's, yeah, it, it was a very trying thing. And one of the problems was that I have, as you mentioned, I have a very big heart. I couldn't choose to leave him because that would hurt him. And so in 2017, the year before we met, there was a wildfire in Northern California and it destroyed our home. That particular event was like a wake up call for me. If life could change in an instant, like in 10 minutes, boom, your life has changed. Um, and if the only thing you're left in life, the only thing you have is the clothes on your back and the relationship you have, that's when you're forced to make some choices. So I left the marriage and started a journey of healing. And that's when I met you, when we when we wrote a book that included the Ignite Your Life for Woman book. My chapter was about forgiveness. I was forgiving the fire. I was forgiving my former husband.
That's beautiful, Angie. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to, before we go deep into the juice of your tips and what
Mhm.
moms can do, is how you move from that into inspiring you. Tell us a little bit about Bella Santanini, and how Bella was born, and what is the intent of Bella, because I know Bella is
Yeah.
doing great things in the world, and I want to recognize, because I know that you are doing it not only for the children that their dads and their moms can afford the book, but you are also doing a lot of philanthropic work in the United States, donating the book, because your call is to help. So let's want to talk a little bit about that before we go into the tops of the resilience and how we can help.
Okay, so Bella Santini Chronicles is a children's fairy tale series that is really aimed at ages 8 to 12, but adults love it too. And um, they're embedded within the story are lessons, little, I call it planting seeds. So, planting seeds of emotional intelligence and self love. And these two ingredients are so key to raising a resilient child, um, really preparing your child to face the adversity in life because adversity happens. Um, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Okay. And now that you're talking about that, I know that there is a lot of confusion when we talk about these big words. So why you don't share with my mamas, with the mamas that are watching us a lot around the world, in your experience, in your work, what it means to raise a resilient children, and what it means to
Yeah.
have emotional intelligence.
So with emotional intelligence, you have the tools and techniques and understanding that you can be responsive rather than reactive. So when you are triggered, you can recognize that there is something inside you that is reactive to what is happening, and you take ownership of that. It is my reaction. This is me. And so there's some energy within me that I need to work on so that I am not reactive to this behavior. And that understanding of your own emotional triggers, plus knowing the tools of how to overcome them, that's what emotional intelligence is.
And what about resilience? When we are talking
And
about,
resilience, well, when you have those tools, you understand that everything in life that comes at you is something there for you to gain some understanding, some wisdom. There's always a gift in everything. And, some people might like, oh my gosh, no, my house burns down. There's no gift in that. But when you get to the other side, yeah, in the immediate time when you're in a crisis, it's almost impossible to see the gift in what's happening. But as you get away from it, when you understand your emotions and have those tools, you're able to accept it as something that happened and just move forward. And that is what resilience is.
So if what you're saying is that resilience will be the capacity to almost let go what happened and just take it as it is, learn from it, and then be in peace with that instead of letting
Yes,
it keep eating us alive inside.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's a release of the emotions that are surrounding the event, because what happens, um, let's take a wildfire that destroys everything. Um, you think, why me? You think, oh my gosh, my neighbor's house didn't get burned, and every house from mine to the end of the block did. Why are they special? And your mind starts making up all these stories about what's happening. Um, when you're pointing the finger and blame, like the government did this because they didn't make sure that the energy company um, maintained their lines, and the line fell and it started a fire and 5,000 homes burned. It's when you're in blame, you are the victim. And when you're the victim, you have no power. You have no ability to create change. So when you can say, look, this happened, it sucks, but it's not about me. It's not a personal, um, nobody chose me for this. It just happened. And so it's not personal. And now I have to decide, what I'm going to do with my life from here.
Yeah.
It's
And I think
almost
that,
like a clean slate.
yeah, and that is so powerful because especially for moms to be and new moms, that is something that happen at an even faster speed than a regular person because we are having so many changes at the same time that so many things
Mm,
could go not as planned. And I actually remember when I had my problems breastfeeding my baby was 1 week old, and my meal came late, and all that
mhm.
start coming up. And one of my favorite phrases is dots always connect backwards. So when you're in the middle of it,
You never see it.
you never see it, you don't understand. You are just sometimes feel of anger and frustration and sorrow and sadness. But every single time, and I think that is the same for you, that we are able to look back, then we understand. Like with the breastfeeding journey for me, it was one of the most darkest times in my life. I was
Mm,
depressed, I was crying, I was fighting to save my breastfeeding journey. I was asking, like you were saying about the fire, why me? All these other people don't have problems
right.
breastfeeding, and this is important for me. Why I'm having problems? And then I fight through it and save my journey. And then after that, I went to the other side, I realized that it was a gift for me to be able to help mamas that are having the same issue, because now
Mhm.
I went through it and I know how hard it is, how much pain they have. So I love how you put that is part of just realizing and observing that the reaction and then learning from it. Um, Angie, um, Angela, that's gonna talk a little bit more into what are some of the things that moms, new moms, and even moms to be can start doing in the way that they react, in the way that they handle their kids, in the way that they interact with their children. How we
Mhm.
can start, like you were saying, I love that, planting those seeds to help them to grow those skills that they will need for the rest of their life.
Yeah, so one of the things that is really important, is to allow your child to be who they are. Because, you know, Joanna and I and many people in our generation grew up at a time when our parents had ideas about who we should be. Oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Follow me in my business. Um, that is, every single individual is born with a gift for the world. And when we try and force them into our idea of how they can be a success, then they are not allowed to express their own gift. So when we allow them to find their way and express their their own self and their own gift, they they will find the level of success that they want with that. Some people do not call success, um, having, the $100,000 job where you're stressed all day. Some people see success in being happy in your work instead of being rich in your work. So that's that's one thing that I would love to see parents start embracing. Um,
And how we can do that, like how, like if a child is sharing maybe ideas or things that we are not very comfortable, because this is the part where we start even starting even peeling the onion, because I think that is not only, it's not only profession, it's not only our child saying, oh, I want to be an artist. I remember, for example, my parents, artists or musician, they were like, you're going to starve to death. Those are not
right.
careers. So but it's not only profession, but it's also things like, I don't know if you watched this video this week, but it broke my heart, because it was a video of this little boy in a dress room with a beautiful colorful kind of a dress with a tutu. And then his mom was asking him, like, you are excited about this dress, you pick it up, and why you are telling me that you are only going to wear it at home? And then he said, sad, because he was like, because last time that I wore a dress at school, everybody make laugh at me and say that I was becoming a girl. So I think that it's beyond the profession. It's also things
It
about
is.
embracing that our my boy doesn't wear pink, or my girl cannot play with dinosaurs and trucks. So why don't talk a little bit about examples and things that we can see as signals, so parents will not hurt their child without knowing that they are hurting their child with so many of those options in the spectrum.
Yeah, thank you for that. Um, one of the things that I'm very much against is labels. So, when you said the word spectrum, which made me think of the autism spectrum and how that is a label, and every label limits and boxes the child. And we, as adults, we don't see past the label, and we only have the expectation that this is what my child is. So ADHD, autism, um, gay, lesbian, whatever the label is. And everybody is so much more than whatever label we can put on them. When we just let go of our expectations and allow things to flow. So, if I was the mom of that little boy, I would be so sad because he was expressing his love of color, his love of finery, and yet he is labeled at school for that. And he's very blessed to have a mom who sees him and allows him to be who he is at home. And I think it's it's hard, and what that particular mom can say to her son is, "Hey, there are a lot of people who have grown up with ideas of what's right and what's wrong, and it doesn't make them right or wrong, but they are carrying judgment. And, the ultimate world will be where we can all love unconditionally." And so I would tell my son to just send love to those people. Because when we are in opposition to something, we are adding to the energy of that thing. So when we are in opposition, let's talk about a schoolyard bully, and we don't like that person because he's mean and he does this and he does that. First off, we're blaming, so we are the victim and we have no power to change it. But beyond that, hurt people are the ones who hurt people. And so this bully is expressing the things he learned. Um, he's trying to create control because he lives in chaos. And when we respond with love, we give him the opportunity to choose love. And so that whole, I think Mother Teresa said, "I will never go to an anti war rally, but I'll go to every peace rally. She will not be against, but she will be for." And I can see the wisdom in that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you said that is beautiful is having that concept of inclusion. And what you were talking, I was thinking that sometimes we as parents assume and actually underestimate how smart our children are and how their
Oh,
brains
yeah.
are just absorbing and sponging. So I was actually thinking and how we as parents, even from the time that we are pregnant or the baby's very tiny, how we can give them the options and the variety. So it's something that they actually understand and see. Kelly saying that she loved that quote from Mother Teresa. Yes, I love it too, Kelly. And so it was like, for example, my child had dinosaurs and cars, but my child also have pink unicorns, and it's and actually funny enough, uh, his pink unicorn is one of his favorite toys. And
Mhm.
instead of since the beginning, they're like, oh no, that's a girl's toy. It's like there is something that he likes about that toy that I'm embracing as a mom. So why you don't share with
Mm,
us a couple of those things that we as moms can do to actually not only like you are saying, I love that concept of not being reactive and wait until the situation happens, but how we can be proactive in allowing them to see that world of possibilities and feel that whatever possibility of those they choose is safe, and that we have their back,
right.
and that we are working on a safe container, even if unfortunately in some cases the world is not a safe container yet. At least we can tell them that we as their parents are fighting and behind their back on creating the safest environment for them.
I would say, one response I would have is that the children today are basically every single one of them is an old soul, and they're bringing huge amounts of wisdom. They still are growing up and learning in, this human environment and learning the rules of society and how things are. But these children are gonna be the ones who change the world. And it's our role as their parents to give them the self-esteem. I call it self-love, and the emotional intelligence so that they aren't triggered by the things that happen, so that they can look through the eyes of compassion to see the emotions, the hurt driving some of the behavior in the world, and that they have this strong base of knowing that they are magic. Their magic is love, and they are a gift to the world. And so, from a parental perspective, I think just telling your child over and over again that there are endless possibilities, that, yeah, it may look scary out there right now, but your generation is going to change this, and it's going to really, um, really be a different world when they're adults. So just planting that seed in your child will help them, first embrace the idea that I have value, and also understand that it is through love and compassion that we will actually change the world.
I love that. And actually, Kelly's also sharing that self love, self worth, and that unfortunately a lot of children don't have good self worth nowadays. So, and Angela, in your experience and through Bella, what are some of the tools and what are some of the things that both parents and children can use to actually get that self love and self worth strong and make sure that is something that comes from inward, not
Mhm.
outward? Because I think that that is one of the biggest challenges that unfortunately society we are combining
Always looking.
and linking my self worth, my self love depends on external factors, on what others think about me, on what others say about me. So how we can switch that and help our family, our children, our babies, our kids to actually practice that self-worth and self-love from an inward perspective, how we can help them to cultivate that seed like you were saying before.
Yeah, one of the elements of the Bella Santini books is a child's promise to the parent and a parent's promise to the child. And this is something I was inspired to write. The parent is promising that I will love you unconditionally. I will honor your feelings. I will let you experience your feelings because, even something as simple as there, don't cry is saying you should not experience your feelings. And we are here. One of it's actually a gift that humanity has, the ability to experience feelings. So um, it would be good for us to let go of the good feeling, bad feeling thing. Just understand that feelings are only emotion, they're only information. And then having this this one tool that allows you to experience your feelings without getting your mind involved in like how unfair it is. So to feel your feelings from a space of neutrality as a witness, you notice your feelings. So how am I feeling right now? You scan your body, you pay attention to where is their tightness, where is their clenching, does it feel like there's this black ball of prickly stuff in your stomach, or is it in your throat, or just where is it? And then you name the feeling, and you don't say I am sad, you say I am feeling sad. Because any words you say after I am, you're claiming that for you. You're making it who you are. I am feeling sad. And then you allow it for a minute or two. You just say, okay, I'm feeling sad. It's okay for me to feel this way. In about 90 to 120 seconds, the energy, the biochemistry of that feeling has now left you. The reason why we end up holding on to feelings is because our mind gets involved, and our mind will start thinking, he did that to me. It's not fair. I shouldn't have to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way. Whatever our mind is saying, by making our focused attention on the feeling itself, we are disconnecting our mind from it. And then as we notice the feeling and we let it flow, that in a minute or two is the end of it.
I love that, and we will answer Kelly's question. She's asking which of your book series you recommend to start with. Her grandson is 2, and his parents read to him. So we are going to talk about that. And before we go into that, one of the things that is going to very important, I want everybody to realize what Angela said. Angie said, she said, and this is, I was guilty. I raised my hand. That desire of avoid our children to experience the feelings that we consider bad. So like yeah, okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, don't cry, you are okay. Actually, there was a memory of a child psychologist that I was hearing, and she was saying that she was in the doctor, and the doctor put a vaccine in the baby, in a 9-month-old baby, and the baby started crying, and then she was like, It's okay, it's okay, don't cry, it's okay." And then the doctor looked at her and said, like, "No, it's not okay. He probably is hurt. I
Right.
put a needle in his arm, so actually it's not okay." So that mindset for us as new moms to start thinking that, and start thinking on how we talk. And one story from me is my baby had very strong feelings about the car seat in the car, very strong feelings.
Uh-oh.
And then at the beginning I was very triggered. I was like trying to convince him to not cry, to distract himself. And now what I'm doing is what you are teaching is, be there, hold the space, and say, I know you don't want to be here. I know this is hard. I
Mm.
know you are upset. I hear you crying. And I need you to stay safe. And we are in the car. But then I am starting to be able to hold a space for him to actually understand that it's okay. I love your idea of not label good emotions, bad emotions, because that triggers so many things, even from the relationship with food after, of
Oh, yes.
tapping the bad emotions with food. So I love the idea that you said of let it flow. And I love the tip that you said, and I want all of you mamas to read this down and try it out. If you allow any feeling to go through your body without getting reasons, and start putting your mind working into the feeling, Angela is saying that it will only last 90 seconds to 2 minutes. How many of us could handle that for us, our children?
Well, and what I would say that um, there are some really heavy feelings. Grief, when you lose someone, is probably one of the heaviest feelings. And it's this is a journey, a process, because you will feel, name, allow the feeling, and it'll flow. And then maybe a half an hour later, it'll revisit you. You feel, name, allow, let it flow. You keep doing it. And eventually the energy of that feeling can become less. Your emotional triggers become less because you've now worked out some of that energy by just allowing the feelings to flow.
Absolutely. I love, thank you for doing that clarification. It's not that it's 2 minutes and then it's gone.
And then
That
it's done.
you preparing, and that is the same with babies. Like, Like they will cry and they will share how they feel. That's gonna answer our audience and Kelly on which of your books you think that will be the first one to start with, and
Yeah.
how they, even at 2 year old, you can start reading and putting some of that information in their heads.
Yeah, and, the publisher puts my books at 8 to 12-year-olds because they're beginning chapter books. Um, However, a parent reading to a 2-year-old, I would read to my 1-year-old, you know, some pretty big books sometimes, and it's they're gonna absorb some of it. They might not understand some of it, but what's interesting is I think later on when they're old enough to read, they'll probably pick that book up and start again and read it again. So the information will be reinforced. And I do want to answer Kelly's question. So, book one, Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change, would be the best place to start because the instructions about feelings are really worked into that book. Book two, Bella Santini in the Troll War, is more about self love and self trust. And so that would be the follow-up book. And book 3 is really about self-trust. So yeah, book 3, Bella gets in a really tight space and has to rely on her own self to get out of there. And so it's really showing kids that through curiosity and through just understanding that you have the inner strength to do this, um, that you can overcome the adversity.
I love that. Thank you so much for that, Angela. And going back into that resilience path and that path of the emotions, part of that emotional intelligence that we were talking early on sounds like a big part of that in your experience, in your knowledge, is our capacity to be able to relate and handle all kind of emotions without label. These are the good emotions that I should be feeling all the time, like, and then these are the bad emotions that
Bad
I
emotions I
should,
should avoid. Yeah.
like you were saying at the beginning with you and anger, that because of how you grow up, you were like, this anger thing is something really bad
It's
that nobody
bad.
should feel like. So how we can start moving into talking about those bad emotions, because there is something that is very particular about this topic, and that is we have more and more moms and dads ready to raise their children different and
Mhm.
ready to actually start applying things that you are teaching to their children. And we still have grandparents and uncles and aunts that are may not be completely aligned with that. So for example, if I am teaching my child that there is not a bad emotion, that that is okay to be angry, but then we are visiting a grandparent and then they still get some of that bad emotion from them, how do you
Mhm.
think that would be the best way to handle that for the child, and also to create some healthy boundaries with the people that relate and have a relationship with our child, with our children?
Yeah, I would be really forthright with the child. I would say, grandma and grandpa, they never learned about emotions. They they weren't taught, their parents weren't taught, and they didn't really teach me. And because they didn't know. So you, my son, my daughter, you are um, lucky because you're learning about emotions and you won't go through some of the pain that my parents did because they didn't know how to deal with their feelings. I started off talking about my father. um, he was apparently, according to my aunt, a very sensitive child. And if you can imagine a sensitive boy growing up in the Depression, his father called him gay. His father told him he was worthless. His father told him he would never amount to anything. And so my father grew up feeling like it wasn't okay to be himself. And he chose alcohol. So he had, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm a failure. And these complex feelings were plaguing him. He chose alcohol as his escape from the feeling. However, his behavior when drunk caused his family, his immediate family, to see him as not a good father. And so his escape mechanism perpetuated the behavior. So those feelings stayed with him no matter how much he wanted to escape them. And he actually died an alcoholic on Skid Row and never learned how to process his feelings and how to be with his feelings. That's really sad. It's really sad. But the children, they have the ability to understand, okay, I've been given something from my parents that their parents didn't get. And that's why they're telling me this. But I know it's healthier for me to express my feelings. So just keep reinforcing that it's really much healthier. When we think of painful feelings and the escape of painful feelings, there's alcoholism, there's substance abuse, there's overeating, there's anorexism, there's all these behaviors that people adopt in order to escape their feelings. And each of those behaviors reinforce the feelings. And so it's like this prison of their own making that they can't get out of because they don't know how to be with their feelings.
And two things that I think that are fantastic on what you said is that part of the hamster wheel, that as more
Yeah.
we try to hide from them, as more they chase us, because as we try to hide we actually perpetuate that feeling, because what we do from that pain hurting position bring that we hate and that we
Yes.
are afraid or that we are not proud of. So that is beautiful and so important for all of you mamas to know. Then the other one is that I want to share, and is the power. And I agree with Kelly what I was saying about the sound of our voice is very powerful.
Yeah.
Your voice as a mom, as a dad. Remember, when the babies are born, they don't see very good. So the main two senses that they have are hearing and smell. So because of that, the voice of your parents had a very strong power in your subconscious. So reading Bella Santini books to them even early on. One of the things that I started doing with my son was start giving him love affirmations when I'm breastfeeding
Mm,
at night and he's already starting to snooze, that I know that his subconscious is completely open because he's going down into deep sleep.
mhm.
I start telling him, you are loved. Like you were
Oh.
saying in your contract, your mommy will love you unconditionally. You are brave, you are creative, you are kind. And for 5 or 6 minutes, I just shower him with
That's
some of
beautiful.
these things that I want him to grow up feeling and understanding and believing. And that is something that we all can start doing. And is how many times, how often you stop and tell your baby, your child, your 6 month old, your 1 year old, your 5 year old, your 10-year old, You are creative.
15-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, your love. I'm proud of you. Thank you for being in my life. You are
You are a
worthy.
gift. Yeah.
You are a gift. Because one of the things that I love that you said, and I want to go back to that, is the contract. And imagine all of you mamas, if you make that exercise, if you get the book and read a little deeper into that contract, and you decide to do that contract with your child. And then
Mm.
how beautiful it is that you do that contract with your child as soon as your child is born. And then
Mhm.
as your child start growing up and getting more conscious, you share, hey, I make this contract with you the day that you were born. And that is that I'm going to love you unconditionally, that I'm going to be here holding a space for you to be free to experience all the emotions that you need to experience. How much that will change how our children are feeling, how they are feeling, how they are growing, how they are feeling confident in a world that the reality is it can be scary sometimes.
Our children are well, and I do wanna say that there's one other piece of that promise where the parent is saying, "I will love you when you're mad. I will love you when you're sad. I will love you no matter which emotion. You are lovable." And that is really key for kids to understand that them being themselves in their emotions and in many other ways, but just them being themselves, they are lovable, period.
Ah, That's
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I think one of the things that my baby's a very alert, creative baby. I think that he got a very weird mix between the Colombian and me and my husband. My baby doesn't sleep much. My baby requires a very few level of sleep, and that is something that I start doing because I start finding that I was tired at the end of the day. I want him to fall asleep. And then he
Mhm.
didn't want to fall asleep. And he was crying and I was triggering. And I find myself judging and getting upset with him. And then I feel guilty about it as a mom. And I was like, he's so tiny and I'm here projecting. So then I start doing what you said and what I learned from you. And it's like, mommy love you even if you don't want to sleep. Mommy love you and it's okay if we want to stay up for
Mm.
another couple of hours. Mommy's here with you. And the magic thing about that, and I want to hear your opinion on this, Angie, is that magically help him because as soon as I start going from that perspective of I accept you and I love you even if you are not doing what I want because I really
Mhm.
want you to sleep, but if you decide to not sleep I still love you and I'm still here for you. So as soon as I get that, it sounds weird but he start calming down, but then I start calming down and feeling better and don't feeling as anxious. So
Mm.
I want you to actually share with us how we are thinking that we are doing it for them, but at the end I believe that is a
It's all
win-win situation because as we do it for them we are also doing it for ourselves.
Yeah, the first thing I wanna say is that we are all energy. If you we know that we're made up of cells, and within those cells are molecules, and within the molecules are atoms. If you just imagine yourself in your skin and you look around at the cell and then look at the molecule, look at the atom, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a universe inside me. It's all energy. And when we are in resistance, and I have absolutely no judgment about you being resistant to your son still being awake because, gosh, that would just drive us all mad. But um, that energy of your resistance is actually touching your son, and that's building more within him. So when you finally accepted and said, okay, I love you even if this is happening, I love you no matter what, then that child can now relax because there's no need to resist the resistance. And so that's kind of how when we as parents find ourselves being resistant to our child's behavior, if we can take a breath, stop, feel our own feelings because and and also give ourselves grace because we did not learn about emotions when we were kids. So, um, then we can take a breath and add love to the mix. And when we add love to the mix like you did, what a great example that was. It changes the environment.
Change them, change us. And this has been so magical. And I want to thank you in the name of all the moms and dads and families out there, because what you are doing is so important. Before we go, I want to ask you two last questions. The first one is why you don't actually share a little bit with the audience. I know that you're very humble, but why you don't share with the audience the philanthropic work that you are doing of donating some of your books to schools where children will not have the resources to have them other way, and then let's
Yeah.
gonna go back into how parents can reach out to your books, remember the name and where they can find them.
Okay, so that program is actually ended, but I have a new one starting. So that program, I had done the free books. I put my book on Wattpad and I provided the link to different schools and allowed them to give the link to all the children in their school. And that was a wonderful way to get kids to understand emotions. And then um, now there is a program called Influence with Love that teaches children to influence with love. And so that is something that now the the purchase of the book supports that program. So the first book in the series is called Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change. It's available on Amazon. And if you want both books, you could just search the Bella Santini Chronicles and both will pop up.
Bella Santini Chronicles in Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
uh, Before we go, the one last wisdom drop from
Mm.
you to every single mom, dad, grandma that are watching us, to inspire them to actually keep working on the emotional intelligence of their children and the resilience of the children. Why that is important for you, Angie?
Yeah. You know, my typical thing is to say, give yourself grace because you didn't learn this. But, and that is true. But it's really important for parents to understand that their words are important, but their behaviors and actions show more. So you need to model self love in order for your child to find their own self love. And that means watching the criticism that you make on yourself, replacing the criticism with praise, the judgment you make on yourself. Um, just these things are really important to model for your child.
Thank you so much, Angie. I think that you bring so many beautiful and easy ways to change our paradigm and to understand how much more power we have that what we sometimes believe in actually make sure that our children had all the tools and the seeds, like you said, them to thrive in life in a way that maybe we never knew how to. Thank you so much for being here. I love you
Thank
and sending
you.
you a big
Mm.
hug, and all of you knowing this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.